All right, let's get started. Just as a repeat, in case anybody missed it, we've got some lovely, beautiful purple highlighters. If you're a color coder, make sure you use the royal purple for anything related to God, royalty, anything like that. So there's plenty of highlighters if anybody needs them. I think you'll find it can be helpful when kind of studying here. But I'm gonna do. Yeah, there you go. That's perfect. Yeah, feel free to take them back there too if anybody. We've got a couple boxes up here, and so.
Everything but purple. See, they got everything but purple.
No black and gold, just yellow. You can scratch out if you want in black. I don't know. But, hey, while we open, I'm going to ask Kane. I hope it's okay that I put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask Kane. Would you mind just opening us up in a word of prayer, and then we'll kind of get started. Come up there. It's up to you. You can stand on the table if you want to.
I guess everybody wants to.
All right, everybody closes their eyes anyway. So.
That's true. That's true.
Father God, I pray for this night and allow us to dive into your word. And I thank you for the time that we get to be here, and for those that are here and for those that are not here, let them know that they are missed. I pray that you open our hearts and our minds, Lord, that you would speak through Brother Adam and for what he has in store for us tonight from your word, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, so we have several new faces here. Actually, I'm going to put this up here. If you look at your email, for those who registered, I know several didn't register, and that's okay. If you come and you're not registered, it's okay. You can still invite other people too. There's a chance that we will potentially, as the class, we're kind of at max capacity right now, and we're actually still missing a couple people. So if we have to, we will move classes, and I think, to me, that's a cool success story. That just shows that there's a lot of desire to get in the Word. But if anybody uses Remind, I created a class for announcements or whatever. I can't write and do this at the same time. Okay, how do you do the @ sign, right? Like that? Okay, @22 Joseph. If you text that to the number 81010, you will be registered in a free class announcement type thing. So if we happen to have to move rooms or anything like that, I will send that out to there. And if you reply back, not everybody will get it, and it's just kind of helpful. But I'll get it. So if you have questions or afterwards, if you have concerns, I also, in the email that I sent out this afternoon, I included a link to a Google Drive folder that I just did a real rough audio recording just on my phone of last week's little thing. People have been asking why we're not recording these. I envisioned this class being more of a group discussion type class, guided through these stories. And so that does not make for great content to actually watch or catch up on. If you're absolutely desperate, then listening to it's okay. But that's also why we're not going to video it and that kind of thing. So.
Why 22, Joseph?
Because Joseph was already taken, and Joseph 2022 was already taken, and Joseph 2023 was already taken, and Joseph 23 was taken, and I don't know. It just is like, by the time I got to this, they were like, how about 22 Joseph? I was like, perfect. Like, I don't care. Just take it. Just
We talked about it in 2020.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I'm still stuck back there, so there you go. So if you want to be a part of that, or if you want to, if anybody needs the link and they want to catch up on, you didn't miss much last week. We actually never even touched Joseph. In fact, let's just open up the floor for those who were here. Anybody want to help kind of start to fill in some of the gaps as far as what we talked about last week, and if and why that might be important? Yeah?
We reviewed creation.
Yep, we reviewed creation.
Theme of the older, younger siblings favored.
Yeah, yep. Younger sibling favored. We didn't hit that very hard, but that's going to become important. Yep. Anybody else?
Talk about all those things you got put up on the board right there.
Yep. We talked about all these things just as a review. The Hebrew text, the Old Testament, is brilliant. And all throughout the Old Testament, the author is trying to get your attention, try to get you to see that they're attaching these narratives all together, these events together. And you're going to notice that through some things that we often overlook. This is not some amazing catch-all list. This is just compiled over a little bit, things that we've kind of, for me, it speaks, like, this makes sense to me. But there are great ways that you can, find this stuff otherwise. But when you start to see things like repeated words and phrases, these themes or patterns, certain themes, which you'll kind of catch on more and more as we keep going, things that seem like just super hard right turns, which we'll talk about that again, or if things like skip a whole bunch of periods of time and then it zooms into just like a few hours during while describing an event, that's kind of important. Or if it becomes overly detailed, like very specifically detailed, or even, I didn't write this up here, incredibly vague. If they're in the middle of something that seems overly detailed and then they go kind of really vague on something and then back to detailed, you'll start to see, this is the language I've kind of developed is like, this is when the author's winking at you. It's just like the author's like, hey, you should slow down. Slow down for a couple moments, just slow down and pay attention. And what you're going to see is this is the author's way of linking to something else. And as you begin to develop this tool, start to have eyes to see this, you'll begin to compare the two narratives or two events or three events or whatever it may be. And you do that by juxtaposing the two stories together. And what you'll see is the Hebrew authors are known for using the same patterns with just slight variations. And it's in the slight variations that you find this just really cool stuff. Right? That's where you find like kind of the meat and potatoes of what's happening. You'll see this often in Hebrew poetry, parallelism and that kind of thing. They'll take a line and they'll slightly shift it in the second line. It'll kind of almost repeat the same thing. Now, our problem is because we don't realize they're doing this, we often overlook it. We often kind of excuse the text like it's a weird translation thing or that it's just how people 2,000, 3,000 years ago wrote or whatever. And so when you do that, you're just missing a whole bunch of cool stuff. And don't take my word for it. That's why there's no book for this. That's why we're just gonna get in the text because I want the text to prove it. Okay? Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Anybody have any questions or anything before we start this? Concerns, thoughts, confusions? Okay, cool. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 37. By the way, if I don't ever actually use this TV, don't worry. It's there. I may use it. It just depends on if I get talking and I don't. So, Genesis chapter 37. What I want you to do is, the reason we had last week is I wanted to fill in kind of the main patterns and themes and these things that are happening from Genesis chapter 1 all the way to Genesis chapter 36 because we've now reached the longest narrative in Genesis. This is kind of the climax of the Genesis scroll, ultimately. And so what they're doing is they've spent all of these chapters setting up something, and now we're going to discover why. And they're going to do that by jam-packing so many things into every single line. And so what I want to do is I want to just begin to read. I want you to be listening to this and reading this with some of these past narratives in mind and see if just anything just stands out. Now, don't worry if you're like, if I ask you, like, did anything stand out? And you're, like, too afraid to answer, don't worry. Just trust your instincts. I promise you, it takes a little bit of time, but the Holy Spirit will guide this. I promise. Just trust me on this. And it's a really neat experience. Okay, so Genesis chapter 37, starting in verse 1. Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah and his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report to them, to their father. All right, we're going to stop there. Anything stand out? Any questions that you may have? Anything that you just thought was strange or stood out?
Well, these are the records of the generations of Jacob. And then it jumps to Joseph, 17.
Yeah. Question, where are the generations? The question was brought up last week. Maybe it's in the chapter before. Did anybody happen to scroll back to the chapter before and just see if the generations of Jacob were there?
About Esau, and this happened before.
Yeah.
You saw one.
Esau, we got the generations of Esau here. And then right before that, if you go just slightly ahead, you get a slight little bit of a generation. Nothing too comprehensive. So that's question number one. Where are the generations of Jacob? What? Just as a quick hint, I know I talked about this last week, but this is our Bibles were developed over time and compiled together into the book form that we have now over time, and chapters and verses were added later. So the authors had their ways of being able to distinguish, hey, this is a new narrative block. And in Genesis specifically, it's called the Toledot. This is the 10th time that this has happened. This is the generation of so-and-so. This is the author's way of going, this is the next chapter. Okay? That's good. Yep. Anything else stand out?
Seventeen's not an adult.
17's not an adult. That's a good hit. There you go. That's not something that's ever stood out to me. So there you go. 17's not an adult there. Apparently.
What is adulthood then?
Yeah.
13.
Well,
I
just
thought 13 was.
it just depends. It just depends. We fill in a lot of Judaism in here, but they're not technically Jews here. These are Israelites or pre-Israel Israelites. And so that's a good question. By the way, I'm not always going to have all the answers, so don't expect that I do. I'm not just a walking commentary.
What version are you reading from?
I'm reading out of ESV, by the way. Yes. And it's helpful if you guys have others, because if you're noticing variations, bring them up.
I noticed that it talks about his father's wives,
Mm-hmm.
which is not his mother, though. It doesn't mention Rachel.
Interesting.
Talks about the maids,
That's
basically.
that's really good. Okay, so we
So
have a
these are
question.
not Joseph's full brothers, for sure. The halves.
We have a question. Where's Rachel? What's going on there?
Don't mention sisters either.
Definitely don't mention sisters. Yep.
Are the wives out there pasturing the flock with his brothers?
It's a good question.
These are the sons of Eli, so, okay.
Let me do it this way. What are some of the things? Okay, if we go back, just as a quick review of Genesis 1, let's go 1 through 3. What kind of things should we be looking for in every narrative based off of what occurs in the first 3 chapters of Genesis? Let's start there, because that's going to set up everything.
A summary?
A summary? What do you mean?
Well, if things have been introduced before, and when you go to and bounce to the next thing, it should kind of tie things up.
Okay, so what kind of things were set up, like, for instance, in Genesis chapter 1? Because this is like the form of all creation. God stands back 7 times and says, this is good. This is the way it's supposed to be, right? So we know that in Genesis 1, it was made the way it was supposed to be. What was man made to do?
Rule.
To rule.
Over.
Okay, so I'm gonna put some just basic words up here. So rule over what?
Beasts of the field.
Okay, rule over the beasts. They're both made the same day as a review. Beasts are made first. Man is made to rule. Not just rule. They were made in a certain way. What was that certain way? Made as an image, right? As literally, the word is selim. What it is it's an idol. Man is made to be an idol of God. Now, in ancient Near East, you're going to see these little statue figurines are made in all of the ancient Mesopotamia, and they would have these images, or these idols would reflect who their gods were. They would go as far as having little ceremonies to have their gods embody the statue. Now, this feels weird for us, but we have a green lady who's out in the New York Harbor that we look to. And what is the Statue of Liberty? What does that represent? Freedom, yeah. America. It brings all sorts of historical implications to it. But is the Statue of Liberty, is it literally freedom?
No, it represents.
Yeah, it just represents something, right? When you look at that, everyone kind of sees what it represents. We are made as the reflection, as the statue, as the idol of God. Which is why he says in the Ten Commandments, don't have any other gods. Don't create another idol. Right? Because we are that for him. So we're supposed to be the reflection or the image of God. Okay, so let's skip forward to Genesis chapter 3 now. We're in a garden. And you know what happens, the fall. And what's the outcome of the fall? Sin. We are now in exile. This is going to be a big deal. We are exiled from Eden. We have to experience death. What is it that they first immediately realize that they are? Right? We are now, I'll just put naked. We're naked. And as soon as somebody is vulnerable, we realize somebody else is vulnerable, now I have the ability to take advantage of that vulnerability, right? It's going to be a big deal. Now we're getting the story of people constantly taking advantage of the other vulnerability. Now, you guys know they tried to make fig leaves to cover up. This is not going to be great. Those are going to not be wonderful, but God in his grace. We see the first theme that's going to take place with regards to the shed blood of an animal, which will be a covering for us, right? We'll cover our shame, we'll cover our nakedness. So that's going to be a theme, a very important one. And I'm just going to put animal now. And who is cursed in the fall? Yeah, the serpent, right? So the serpent is cursed, and what is his curse?
Eat the dust.
Okay, so we're going to have the head crusher, right? And that head crusher is going to be through whom? Yeah, the seed of the woman, the offspring of the woman. Seed of the woman. Now, this is a big deal because we've discovered there's actually going to be two offsprings that are discussed in this same passage. One will be the offspring or the seed of the serpent, which will cause enmity between man. But one day, the seed of a woman will just crush the serpent. Not the seed of the serpent, but the serpent. So if you're reading through these eyes, every single narrative afterwards, you're going to be kind of filtering all these stories through all of these different things. Okay, is man ruling the way that they're supposed to? Are they acting more like the beast? Think of Cain and Abel. Cain, why is your face fallen? Why are you so upset? Don't you know if you continue to do well, it'll be good. But if not, sin is animalistically like a beast crouching at the door waiting to devour you. And we know what happens. He ends up murdering his brother. And you're getting the picture of the first time that the seed of a woman, well, is this going to be actually the seed of the woman who's going to crush the serpent? Or is this human acting more like the seed of a serpent? Right? The seed of a beast. Right? Because the serpent is more crafty than all the beasts of the field, right? And so you're starting to see there's like this conglomeration of a picture that we're supposed to be filtering all these narratives through. And it's important to see that because every person we're going to see afterwards needs to be the seed of the woman who will one day hopefully not act like the seed of a serpent and act like they will control that beastly way and ultimately will take care of the serpent. Well, we know that none of these guys, they all fall flat. But when you read through this, you're going to start to see some of this stuff stand out. As you go down the character list of the narratives that happen first, we get Adam and Eve, we get Cain and Abel. After Cain and Abel, anybody remember who one of the next big characters are going to be? Noah, right? Noah, maybe this is the one, the righteous and blameless Noah. Maybe this is the one. No, he plants a garden, partakes in fruit, ends up naked, right? And you're like, oh no, here we go again, right? We failed immediately. Right? Then you're going to get to Babel or Babylon, and they're going to build for them. They're all going to come into the land of Shinar, build up a tower for themselves, make their name great, right? With Nimrod as the one who is helping create this. Now, I want you to think about this. This hit me like a ton of bricks a couple of months ago. why is it that God tells Cain, don't settle. Don't settle. Like, wander, Cain. Just wander. What does Cain do immediately? He settles. And not just settles, he builds a city. Now, what is a city? What's the point of a city?
Have more people.
Have more people?
Protect you.
Yeah. It's man-made covering, protection. And as long as my man-made covering and protection is better than yours, I can now take advantage of yours. And then you have to become part of mine, and I become great. And you can see, like, these little tiny phrases are going to be thrown in here, and man constantly not ruling the beast, its own beast, that's sin, and now he's going to end up in nakedness, shame, destruction, chaos, death, theme after theme. Then you're going to get the next one whose name will be made great out of Babylon. The next one whose name's going to be great, anybody remember? Yeah, say it. Abram, or Abraham, right? I'm going to make your name great. Now, this is important, right? What's the promises that are made to Abraham?
Get a lot of land, a lot of kids.
Yeah, you're going to have land. You're going to have seed, lots of seed, all kinds of offspring, right? Your name is going to be great. Those who bless you will be blessed. Those who curse you will be cursed. It's going to be through this one person. We're going to suddenly start to see like the promises that God has been setting up at this point, right? And then what does Abraham do? He goes and tries to subvert his own land and tries to have his own offspring his own way. And then you get Ishmael. And then you get, oh, now I can't live in the promised land because I immediately go to Egypt, right? And Egypt luckily blesses them instead of curses them, and then they're blessed, and then you're going to see all these stories where Abraham's issues are constantly him trying to get the blessings that God has promised him on his own. Yeah, he's trying to do exactly what Adam and Eve did, go about it their own way, right? So now we get to chapter 37, and the first thing we see is Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings. Where? Canaan. And what do we know about Canaan? There's actually a map. Oh, it's not the right map. Where's Canaan? I don't want to mess with this stuff. It's okay. Where's Canaan?
And then milk and honey.
Land of which is also known as the promised land. The promise to whom? So Abraham's promised land. Do they own that land?
No,
Which land is this? Whose land is this?
everybody's but theirs.
So now Jacob is living as a foreigner in the land that was promised to his great-great-great-grandfather. And you're thinking, these idiots. Like, if you'd have just listened, maybe this would have been yours now, right? It'll come back to play here soon. Now, Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. Does that stand out at all?
They were getting along.
Okay, his age.
Ruling over the beast. Ruling over the beast.
Yeah, they are pasturing the flocks. Can you guys, anybody remember who the first shepherd was in the Bible?
Abel.
I don't know.
Say it out loud. Say it loud. Yeah. Now, Cain. Cain was a worker of the ground. Abel was a keeper of the sheep. So Abel is killed. He's a shepherd. Now, this is going to be a whole theme in itself that we won't get into, but just know, like, can you see how every single meticulous line is in here for a reason? And unless you read through this filter, you're not going to catch half of this stuff. Now, now here's just a fun nerd thing to do that we're not going to do tonight. Go start comparing these shepherds. Go compare the shepherds, see what happens. See what happens to them. Juxtapose those a little bit together, and you'll start to see more patterns arising, and it's really fascinating. Okay, let's sit down and Joseph brought a bad report to them, to their father. What's your thoughts here? Seems like a tattletale, right? Huh?
What could they have to report?
Yeah. How many are like, what did he say? What did his brothers do?
They hated him.
We know why they hated him, we assume, because he's a little tattletale, right?
Yeah.
The human side of us is like, yeah, we can't stand them. How many have a sibling that did that all the time growing up? Right? Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah, I could tell. Yeah. I didn't want to point it out, but I was like, you were a tattletale, weren't you? Okay, so you can kind of relate here, humanly. You can kind of see there's a human thing going on, but there's a reason why it's incredibly vague. Now, in these moments, if it's weird and it stands out, it's going to become important. But the Bible's not going to just give you what you want. Why?
You search for it.
And what happens as you search?
It's unfolded.
It unfolds.
You chase rabbits.
You chase rabbits. I have a word for that. It's called my Bible ADHD. It's like, here I am in Joseph. We're in Jonah. We're in Abraham. We're in Cain. We're up in Jesus now. Yeah. Go ahead.
God calls people who are working. Like whenever Moses was tending his sheep, he called them. Whenever David was tending his sheep, he called him. He calls you whenever you're working, not when you're
How old are you? This is Brady. He's a 12-year-old in this class right now. That's amazing right there. He just tied in 2 other people who are, yeah, that's amazing. Good job.
Yeah,
Say it real loud.
God calls people who are working, not being lazy. He called Moses when he was tending his flock. He called David when he was tending his sheep.
And I wonder what Moses and David were. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Good job. All right. So, he brings a bad report. We're not going to be given this bad report. We're going to have to discover later on, maybe in a time in which some other people in his family should have maybe brought a bad report, but chose not to. And then suddenly you go, whoa, wait a minute, what does that mean? Okay, let's keep going. We're going to get to the big part here, right? This is the big one, okay? All right, so he was pasturing his flocks. He brought a bad report to them to their fathers. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was the son of his old age. Let's stop there. Anything stand out?
Israel.
Why do they call
What
him
about
that?
Israel?
That's the national name.
Interesting. You mean to tell me that in 3 verses the author forgot the name that he was using at the start? Jacob, Israel. Same guy?
Yes.
So why did it switch names?
It's more important.
More important. Okay?
It goes from a singular person to a whole concept.
Whole nation. Okay?
Maybe that
That's one theory.
Maybe that denotes the time span between Jacob's name and his Israel.
In other words, like his name changed in between at some point,
Yeah,
and now we're up to a present time.
right.
That's a possible theory. Can I tell you I don't know? The theory is that Israel, when use it, kind of what you're saying, the theory is that when they use Israel, it's going to reflect more to those who are reading this as an Israelite, more of like a, hey, these are the sins of your fathers. Not like your great-grandfather, but like your fathers. Like this is clearly something that you're going to read. From now on, fathers playing favoritism. Anything else stand out in this?
The Step Bible in here says that Israel is referred to who is the current patriarch, living patriarch at the time. So,
Okay.
You could associate it like that Jacob was the current, so they just switched the name of it.
Just,
He was
okay.
the head of it.
Yep. There's another theory that it's called the document hypothesis that says that basically there may have been up to 4 different scrolls that were kind of combined, mishmashed into one. That's a whole rabbit hole we don't have to go down, but they say there's one that's like a Deuteronomistic one that kind of will refer to one person as Jacob, and maybe a priestly one that will refer to it more as Israel. Go take that if you want to. That's a rabbit hole you can read. It's really nerdy, but I don't think that's matters ultimately.
Joseph is the favorite because Israel was old.
Okay, so Joseph was his favorite because he was his kid of his old age. There's some glowing weirdness here. Anybody remember why this would be weird? So Joseph is the youngest.
Well, he's not the
The
youngest.
best.
He's firstborn of his
Wait.
favorite wife.
Wait, You mean not droopy-eyed Leah, right? But, just beautiful Rachel, who couldn't have kids, right? Pain in childbearing, by the way, as a result of, all this stuff. She can't have kids. Now she has kids, and she has just one? She has two. Who's the firstborn? Joseph. She has another whole kid. That literally cost her life. Benjamin. Right? So why is this weird? Oh, Israel loved Joseph more. Because he had a younger one, Benjamin. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, Benjamin caused Rachel to die. So where's Rachel? Oh, she died like 3 chapters ago. So she's not mentioned. You now kind of feel like, okay, well, does Joseph blame Benjamin? I don't know. I have a lot of questions about Benjamin. How would you like to have Joseph, your older brother, be the favorite because he is the son of Rachel, but you're also the son of Rachel? Oh, you killed your mom. Yeah. And you're like, oh, this is not good. Is it? Can you see that the parent-child relationship problem is like a big deal in the Bible? Anybody have broken parent-child relationship, know some broken parent-child relationships today? I wonder if whoever wrote this, God, knew this was going to be a thing, like forever. All right, keep that in mind. And then we get to the part that everyone knows, the beautiful, bright Jonah whale, right, of the Joseph story. He was so favored that Joseph decided to give him what? Come on, say it in the Broadway terms.
Hey, multicolored.
The Technicolor Dreamcoat. Now, how many have heard over and over, what in the world is this Technicolor Dreamcoat? Is he walking around with a rainbow coat? What is this? I mean, it's the thing that we talk about, like, anytime you bring up Joseph, right? What is this coat?
Probably the royal color, the purple color.
Okay. Theorize that maybe it's purple. Stood out, yeah?
It's not work clothes.
Okay. Special clothing, maybe not work clothing.
Fine.
It's fine.
Fine linens and silks and threads.
Yeah, expensive maybe.
Fancy.
There's some commentators that say it's actually maybe more of an ornamental coat to kind of represent the priestly garments that will be worn later on, which apparently that's what Logan said. That's what I'm seeing back there. If you just speak up, Logan, everyone would know. So why do we care about this coat?
Because the brothers hated him.
Oh, the brothers looked at him like, you turd, tell on me about this. And you got that pretty coat of yours, right? This is one of those that we get hyper fixed on, and we miss all the reasons why it's important later. What happens to this lovely coat?
It's taken off already.
Blood poured on.
Yeah, he's got blood poured on his whatever. We'll get to that too. Right? It gets returned. So then what happens to it? Just disappears from the story, right? No longer important.
Torn.
Technicolor Dreamcoat disappears after the torn, bloody given back to Jacob, Israel, right?
Right.
So why is it that we talk about this dang coat all the time?
It's a good story.
It is a great story.
The symbolism.
It's symbolism. Oh, that's very interesting. It symbolizes what? Favoritism. Okay.
But later on, he will have different clothes because he will be.
You mean to tell me that we're so smart and our intuitions are so great that we know we should pay attention to this dang coat, but we pay attention to the dang coat for all the wrong reasons. Because the dang coat's going to come back up again, just not as a Technicolor Dreamcoat. In fact, it's called a motif. I wonder if this is a repeating thing. Turn with me to Genesis. Let me open this Bible so that way I can see this a little better. I can't read my tiny writing. Genesis chapter 38, verse 15. Somebody read that out loud.
And when Jude saw her, he called her to be a harlot because she had covered her face.
Okay, so she's covered herself. All right, and he thought she was something else. Now go to 39 verses 12 and 13. Can somebody read that out loud?
She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called to her household servants.
Potiphar's wife. sees the beautiful Joseph, rips his clothing off, uses it to deceive Potiphar. Hint, hint. Go to 41 verse 14.
A lot of deception.
Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh.
It says he has a dream. He tells the whole dream. We're going to skip all the way down, and we see that he gives him, you shall be over all my house and over all my people. Verse 40, they shall order themselves as they command you. Only in regards to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said, see that I've set you all over the land. And then he says, then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand and clothed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck as they elevate Joseph up into second in command. Then, if you continue this theme, I think you'll start to realize that the clothing is a theme that's constantly being used. But half the time it's being used in deception. Half the time it's being used to elevate one in the wrong place, in the wrong land, with the wrong people. And other times it's being used, I don't know, can anybody else think of another time where his garments were stripped from him during a... Yeah, and they cast lots for it. There's blood on it. You see, this is a motif that goes all the way back to the whole nakedness and then trying to cover themselves and then taking what was a blessing from God, the shedding of the animal skin, the blessing from Jacob, the Technicolor Dreamcoat, the blessings from Pharaoh. You're seeing it's taking God's blessings, his grace for people, and using that. Yeah.
Also, when Christ healed asked the blind man if he wanted to be healed, he immediately threw his cloak off.
Yeah.
And that cloak probably denoted his station in life, that he was blind,
Yeah.
destitute.
Yeah.
So he cast that off. Also, the leper, his clothing was changed.
Yep. And and the lady who had the bleeding, she just touched the hem of Jesus' garment and it covered her. Revelation 7, verse 13 and 14. It says, then one of the elders addressed me, saying, who are these? Clothed in white robes, and from where have they come? And I said, sir, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. This is a theme, a motif, a pattern, a melody that will play from beginning all the way to end. So is this about a multicolored coat? No, it's used to show how man will take God's blessings and pervert them for their own will, for their own ways, for their own ruling and reign and deception. And it's the beast using the grace of God. But we get caught on the maybe it's a rainbow coat. Do you see like, anyways, okay, that's a whole nother thing.
Well, rainbow has 7 colors, which 7 denotes complete.
There you go. I mean, the amount of like work and effort that has been put into like some of these things it's astounding, and it's amazing, and they're probably right in most ways, but then they just miss the fact that it's like, no, it's just watch how the coat changes throughout and who's giving the coat, who's offering the coat, how's the coat being used, how's the clothing being used, how does this relate back to Genesis chapter 3? Okay, you guys want to keep going a little further, or you want to? Okay, all right. But when his brothers saw, verse 4, but when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated them and could not speak peaceably to him. All right, what do you guys think about this? Normal? Oh, yeah.
Human
Ugh.
emotion.
Yeah, tell that my daughters cannot speak peaceably to each other ever. Ever. Anything? Can you think of any other narratives where this idea replays itself? Yeah, what happens? What happens with the Cain and Abel story again? Jealousy.
Murder.
Younger one is favored. Cain gets upset, comes to meet him in the field somewhere, and raises up and sheds human blood on the rocks, right? And now the rocks cry out with the shed blood of his brother. Any others?
Jesus is parable about the son that went and came back.
Yes. Yes, which we love to concentrate on that one who wanders away, because we're all that one who wanders away and comes back, and it's wonderful. But is that what that parable is actually about? If it were, it would have just been like, let's party at the end. Right? No, instead it's like, hey, older brother, you were here the whole time. You had access to all this the whole time. Like, that brings up whole other Bible ADHD questions, right?
Well, later when the kings come into it, just the tension between older and younger brothers, who gets elevated, who doesn't, who gets killed, who doesn't.
Yep.
Such a thing is called brotherly rivalry.
Brotherly rivalry, yes. Yes. So let me ask you this question. Why would this be a big deal? Why is this a big deal to us today? Other than human nature, we fight with our brothers, sisters, whatever it is.
Sin. Sin.
Oh, sin, yeah. But specifically, like this is one, you basically can find brotherly rivalry almost on every page of anything that has a narrative in it. Somehow, some way. And where you don't see it, you're just not seeing it because now you're looking past where the generations have went from the brothers to great-grandkids to great-great-grandkids to each have nations and tribes, and now these tribes are fighting, but they're still representing the brotherly thing. So why is sibling rivalry? Why do we care about this?
It breaks the second commandment. Love one another.
Okay, love one another, yeah.
I think it's competitiveness like with businesses in today's time. You know, I mean,
Yeah, I can see that.
rivalries.
Well, you
There's-
gotta learn how to control your pride.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Can't be, I mean, you're not supposed to be boastful, but that's
What
hard.
about what about Jesus? Because he kind of ties like all this stuff up into bows. What does Jesus have to do with this? Redemption. How about specifically with the whole brotherly?
Says to humble yourself.
But so I'm gonna put it this way: if you can find the characteristics that a human being needs to be out of a self-help book that's not religious, let's find where the Bible stands out differently. So like we all agree, pride and humility and things like that, these kind of things cause issue. Why is Jesus and brother rivalry a big deal? Let's look at the motif of the brotherly rivalry. Out of these stories that we've talked about even today, what kind of happens most of the time? What characters do we kind of have involved? Interchange the names. It's a pattern.
Older and younger.
Okay. So we have an older, a younger, and where does the issue happen?
Younger being favored.
By?
One parent or both.
Okay, by, one or both parents. Well, most of the time, it's father. Now, in the sense of when it comes to Jacob the deceiver himself, Jacob and Esau, Jacob is more favored by, so, but the issue isn't that Jacob was favored by his mother, but that the father wants to bless Esau. And Jacob wants that blessing. It's the subverting of the blessing, right? Now, if this is the case, this is the pattern, how does Jesus fit this and fix this?
He's the youngest. He's the youngest.
Is he?
He's not the youngest.
Now, okay.
On the youngest.
I want to be careful here because I don't want you to walk away and be like, Adam says that Jesus has another son and he's supposed to be the father and he's fully God, the Trinity, believe in the Trinity fully. Pattern-wise, though, he's the only begotten son. He's the one that Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, right? What kind of happens a lot of times in this pattern here? Favoritism, starting with the very first time, hint hint, hint, if you go back to the first times you're starting to see the pattern set, that's going to kind of set the standards here. So the first time you see the father, older, younger, we just talked about was Cain and Abel, right? Younger one's favored, older one's mad. What happened? What's the outcome? Death. Now the biblical authors will take this pattern and they'll subvert that slightly. Sometimes the younger one will be favored, but the older one will die. Sometimes, in the case of, how about Noah? Noah has 3 sons, right? Does he favor the youngest son? Shem, Ham, Japheth? No, but does one of them do something that seems to be horrific, by the way? Hint, hint. Mm-hmm. Is he killed? No. Is he cursed? Nope. In fact, it's his son or grandson that's cursed. Canaan. And then you're going, whoa, what? Wait, what?
Yeah, that didn't seem right.
How does that work? Right? Now you start to question, like, okay, I don't understand how that's going to work, but then we got serving of the brothers and servicing of the brothers. Then you get to Esau and you get to Jacob. And does one die in that situation? No. They separate. And what happens when Jacob and Esau reunite? What does Jacob think is going to happen? He's going to be killed. But what does the man of the sword Esau do? He embraces him. He breaks the pattern. Right? So now we're going to get, and what the Bible will do, it'll take these micro pictures and it'll become macro and bigger, right? And so now we're going to get not just one son, not just 2 sons, not just great-grandchildren. Now we're going to have 12. And they're going to be with a whole bunch of different women. Hint, hint, Lamech. If you read anything about Lamech in the early pages of Genesis, he took 2 wives and killed 2 people. And I'm going to take that mark of Cain, and if anybody messes with me, I'm going to avenge them 7-fold that, right? Taking the blessings of God, the grace of God, and perverting it yourself, right? So now we're going to have older brothers, but now he's not the youngest one. So then you're questioning, like, well, okay, it's not always younger, it's not always the older, sometimes they're dead, but if you're reading this picture and you see older, younger favored, what do you think is going to happen here? You think he's going to die, right? Metaphorically, in this headspace, when you read this, he dies. Right? He dies. So now we get back to Jesus. Jesus' only begotten son. Now, there's a bunch of ways that he fits this pattern, though, but in what are some ways that he could fit this pattern here? Is he favored by the Father? What about...
He doesn't truly belong to that father, does he? I mean,
well, in human form, he is the only begotten son, favored by the Father.
He might be favored by his earthly father over the brothers that are born later.
Yeah, but you have to read between the lines there.
Right.
It's not said that. But what I'm asking is, where is this in the Jesus pattern?
Adam?
He's called the second Adam. And Adam, both in literal form and archetypal form, is humanity. It's the firstborn of all creation, but Adam is the favored here. He had his chance. Adam subverted it, but in this pattern, it's upside down. The olders are now going to die, so the only begotten one is going to come, and you're like, oh, finally, the one who will break the pattern of the younger brother, the younger sibling who will be favored now and will not die. Except he does. And he does it by gaining the blessing of his father. And in blessing and in death, it breaks the curse for the older ones. See, what's happening is that the biblical authors are just trying to jam-pack all these patterns in here and trying to get you to start to read them all together and wonder what those implications mean. This fits in multiple ways because there's an older sibling when it comes to religion, too, if you want to look at it that way, right? We see Christianity, Judaism. Go to Romans and see if Paul has anything to say about don't hate the Jews. If it weren't for the older ones, we wouldn't be favored, right? You're seeing it's just a pattern that continues all the way through creation, all the way through the end, all the way through Revelation of the favor of the Father. And then you're left questioning, okay, who does the Father really favor? I'll leave that to answer on your own here. All right, so we got about 9 minutes left. I'm going to just open the floor. If people have questions or concerns or other thoughts that come to mind, if you want to chase a different rabbit hole, we can do that. But I'll just take a couple of moments just to let this kind of sink in here and clarify anything that I may have said. Anybody like head spinning? Yeah. I said this a bunch during Jonah. It's overwhelming. It's going to be overwhelming. I don't expect any of it to be remembered. Again, my only thing that I want you to see is that the things that I want you to be aware of where we excuse the text for what the text is, and we miss on all of the implications of what it's trying to teach us. Slow down on these stories that we've heard a billion times and begin to see how is this supposed to be connecting other narratives, and how does Jesus subvert these patterns, these themes, and then what does that mean for us? Anybody watch Stranger Things? Ever? A couple of you? They go to a different realm in Stranger Things. What's that called? Anybody remember? Yeah. The Upside Down. I think this is a great visual for exactly what constantly from page 1 all the way to the very last page of the Bible. It's Jesus saying, the upside down world is where we need to exist. What we think is right side up is not. It's messed up. It's broken. It's a flawed system. It's man seizing knowledge of what is right and wrong and determining those things on their own. And it causes death, chaos, corruption. Meanwhile, Jesus comes and goes, you think the rich are the rich? No, the poor are the rich. The kings are the servants. Like, he's flipping everything upside down because he wants you to see that. We are to be set apart. We are not of this world. We exist in exile, in need of an exodus out of here. And he offers that to us. But it's going to make us not conform to this world, but should be transformed by renewing our mind to what is right and wrong. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. Then I will close in prayer. And I do want to offer on Tuesday at lunchtime, I will do a live stream, but I do want anybody who doesn't work or has time off or whatever, I would love to have some of y'all in person. Like, it's so much more fun sitting at a table and talking as opposed to me just getting stuck talking to Scott or Wade. I talk to them all the time. So adding a couple more people into that, even you don't have to feel afraid that I won't make you say or do anything that you're uncomfortable with. Some of you have done that in the past. And so Tuesday at noon out in the Student Center, if you'd like to join for conversation, let me know or just show up, whatever. And we'll just kind of go, we'll go about it that way. So let me pray. I'll stay up here if you guys have questions or anything. Yeah?
We had a great response last Wednesday.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. For those who were not here, I put out a plea for help out in the student ministry, and many of you guys showed up to help on Wednesday night. I know, and we had so much help, it was almost like too much help in a great way, and please don't read that like I don't want you there. No, hold on. That's going to be the, hold on. That's going to be the way that you will feel like when you're there. You're going to be like, I'm just standing around doing nothing. Please don't leave. Stay. Help. If you feel that tugging in your heart to come out, even if you can only come out one time a month, that's going to be helpful. What these kids need is they need, even more so than just bodies there, they need a bridge to the rest of this. Because they don't have it. Like, we are church for them. They don't get to experience the blessings of a church family outside of us. And so,
half, roughly, are not members. Like, they come on Wednesday night. We're
Yes.
getting them for that. And
Yes.
we don't know really if a lot of them go anywhere else, so that is our time to be able to reach them.
yeah. And so that's, thank you for those who showed. If you want more information or want to ask me questions about any of that, please let me know. So.
What homework do we have?
What, I'm gonna say, you had 60 kids there.
Yeah,
You need the help.
we do. Yes. Yes, we had 60 kids there. And as a praise, a certain section of the group that we've had that was a ton of, it has been a ton of issue. The reason I've been begging for help recently, stayed after for a secondary Bible study for about 30 minutes. So it was just me and these kids that, yeah, right, yeah. There's a lot of potential there. So thank you for those who can come, and if you are interested or want to know more, let me know.
Now, you had several kids that went outside and was playing in the street,
Mhm.
playing football. Do you want
Yep.
to change that to the?
I told them to move it to the parking lot or the field.
Yeah.
Because it need that, that 20th Street is still
Right.
busy.
And some of that is we're getting in, you'd be a good person to answer some of this, but we're getting in contact with some of the local law enforcement because we want to know where kind of our culpability is when it comes to whether we can, what we can allow them to do, not allow them to do, what we, that kind of thing. So some of those answers will be hopefully coming soon. So
So the ones that stayed after, were they were hungry? To hear
okay, so honestly, they got themselves in trouble. And I didn't realize this. I thought they actually had questions. So I'm sitting here talking. They went into the bathroom together, which is where they've done multiple things that they should not have ever done, and we've caught and smelled afterwards. Aromas that don't come from bathrooms, just so you know. Okay. And they said they were having a Bible study in there. So then one of our adults was like, well, great, come on in and have that Bible study with Adam. And this is where it was cool. Sitting there talking to him, I was like, okay, this feels very forced. Like, I can tell that interaction, I'm interested. But at some point, the conversation shifted, and a question was brought up that didn't have anything to do with anything we talked about. And then they started bouncing other questions off of it, and it turned into a real conversation. And so what started as like a, yeah, sure, you were having a Bible study too. Oh, you actually do have some questions about the Bible. And so it ended up being a real blessing. So long ways to go with those kids. So be praying for those for sure. And thank you for those who were able to be there. So it was a good ending. It was a good ending. This time. It was a very much needed good ending because we had not had been having good endings for a while. So
like in the 40s, they had bathroom attendants or something.
Mm-hmm.
Are you wanting adults to be permanent bathroom
I mean,
attendants?
in the least creepy way possible, maybe. If you haven't been out to the student center, you're a bathroom attendant. If you're just wandering down the hallway, there's no hiding anything that's happening in that bathroom if that door opens. So unfortunately, if you designed that, I apologize, but we should have flipped them doors around, but that's okay. Honestly, just people being there anywhere throughout that building is helpful. They gain less space that they can go hide and do things, and ultimately, I'm not so worried about that. I just want them. I'm more interested in them seeing that adults care about them because all of these ones that we have troubles with, they don't have that anywhere, nowhere at home, nowhere at school, their communities. Nobody cares about them, and I want to be that place that we can say, but we do. We don't agree with it. We won't be okay with what you're doing, but we do care about you. And so that's what we need. So, all right, before I bust into tears for some reason, I'm going to pray, and then we can talk. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this study. I pray that you just be with each and every person who's in here. We have such a range, such an age range here. 12 to who knows. Nor do I dare say. But I'm thankful that we have people who are hungry and are willing to re-examine some of these stories and these narratives and these events, these people, because ultimately we know that it's important and that it does reflect something to us today. And we have hope through reading this and that we get to spend every moment with you. And I pray that this hunger doesn't just stop here, but God, that it begins to infiltrate conversations outside of this room. Other church members, other churches, other friends, family, and that ultimately we see revival. We see a new, in the words of David, restore the joy of our salvation in the time that we get to spend with you. God, we love you and we praise you in your name.